Hi, thanks for joining me. This is Angie, and today we're going to be making a fat quarter quilt. I've picked out 6 fat quarters that I think will go well together. I hope they will. I'm not real sure. So the first thing that we're going to do is just open these up, and we're going to press them. These measure 18 by 22, and we're just going to make a very simple small quilt. It is the perfect size for a child. I want to give you a couple details. Again, we're using 6 fat quarters. Our blocks are going to measure 10 by 8.5. The quilt, when we're done with it, the quilt top is going to measure 38 by 48. You're going to need 1/3 of a yard of fabric for the binding and 2 3/8 for your backing. My long arm quilter provides the batting, so it's normally the same measurement for as your backing fabric, okay? And all these details will be over on my angiejuda.com website, okay? So what I'm going to do is pause the camera for just a second. I'm going to get my ironing station, and then we're going to press these. And I won't show you all of them, because once I show you a couple, you will know what to do. Maybe even just one. Okay, so now I'm just going to open this up. And I want the wrinkles out. And the reason is because I want to cut my fabric. And if it has all of these creases in there, then it makes it very difficult to cut it straight. So I need all the help I can get cutting straight. So that's why I'm ironing. And it's really easy to iron your fat quarters. Sometimes it's not as easy when you're pressing larger pieces, but these fat quarters are pretty easy. Okay, so I think I'm done with the first one. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure that it's going to lie flat. So now I'm going to get one more. Okay, so I'm done with the pressing of the fat quarters. So now I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, I've got my fat quarter here on my desk. And what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to show this in the video. If you need help cutting, let me know. I will point you to a video where I show cutting. Again, this measures 22 inches by 18 inches. We're going to get 4 blocks out of each of these, and they're going to measure 10 by 8.5. So if this fat quarter measures 22 across, then what I'm going to do is cut at 10 and 10, and then that's going to leave me almost 2 inches of scrap. But what I'm going to do is actually make sure my edges are straight. So I'm going to trim off just a hair to make sure it's straight, so it won't be an actual 2 inches that's left over. So you're going to place it where it's 22 inches, cut it 10 and 10. Or you can do it the other way, and you can place it where it's 18 inches and cut at 8.5 and 8.5. This measures 18 inches, so you're not going to need all of it, because 8.5 and 8.5 equals 17, and this is 18, so it's going to be roughly about 1 inch. But you're going to trim your edges so that it's all straight, so you're not really going to have 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to go cut the fabric, and then I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I am back, and I have cut, well, let me take stack 1 here. So this was my fat quarter. You can see if I put the 4 rectangles together, that was my fat quarter. I know you can't see all of it, but so we basically just cut it in half and then cut it in half, and we get 4 pieces. So again, each one of these measure 10 by 8.5, so you get 4 out of 1 fat quarter. The next thing that I did was I decided the pattern of my quilt. So I took it and laid it out on the floor, and I decided that this was going to be pattern 1, and I wanted to alternate. So pattern 1 has the red in it, pattern 2 does not, pattern 3 does, 4 does not, 5 does, and 6 does not. Okay, so now we're going to pin our rows together. So this is fabric number 1, and this is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what I've done is I've typed this up to show that this is going to be pattern 1, and then these are going to be pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 2, 2 and 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and then instead of starting with 1 this time, you're going to start with 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing this time, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 1, and on down the line. If you want, print this. It makes it a whole lot easier. So I'm going to start with row 1, and I'm going to pin them. So I'm going to take my first one right here is 1, and I'm going to keep this 1 here because that is my upper left corner. And then right below it is a 2, so I'm going to take a 2. I'm not going to take the one that has the number attached to it because I'm going to save that for row 2. And then I'm going to place this right sides together, and I'm going to pin it and then sew it. So I'm just going to pin, and I will make sure when I get to the sewing machine that I've kept everything straight. Right now while I'm pinning this on video, it might move and slide a bit, but when I get over there I'll make sure it's straight. Okay, so if you look at this, I've got 1, I've got 2, so now I'm going to take 3. Yes, I just poked myself with the pen. I'd like to say that doesn't happen often, but it does. Okay, so again, right sides together. And sometimes I pin down here at the bottom so that it doesn't shift. So if you're not sewing very straight, that is an option for you. Now if we look back on the template here, we're going to pick up one of number 4. I'm going to attach it to 3. And then to 4, we're going to attach one of 5. I hope this is not confusing you guys. This is the first time I've done it this way. Normally I put them on the design wall, but I've posted the picture right in the middle of this video of what this is going to look like. So if you need to rewind, and then we're going to attach number 6. Now if you don't want a pin, you could just stack all those together and go over to your sewing machine. Okay, so I've got row 1 ready to sew. I'll take this over to my sewing machine. What we're going to go ahead and do is pin the second row. So row 2 starts with 2. So I'm going to pull this first one, because remember that will help us determine our rows. So then we've got a 3. And I don't think I have to show you all of these because it's basically you're just matching up your rectangles to form your rows, and then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. So I'll go ahead and pause the video and get out my sewing machine and we will start sewing, okay? Okay, so I have already sewn together row 1. So this is my entire row. Not that you can see it all in the camera, but I'll show you soon. So now what I'm going to do is actually sew the second row. So I've got that all pinned here. You just want to make sure that you don't stab yourself with a pin, which I typically do at least 1 or 2 times on every quilt. So I'm just going to place it here on the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, and I am going to back stitch, even though some people say I don't have to. I like to do so on my quilts. So if I don't, sometimes the ends come a little bit unraveled, and then I have to go back and sew again. So I'm not going to have that happen. And there's the first one. So then I'm just going to move down to the next one. You can see where maybe waiting until you get to the sewing machine to pin would make it a little bit easier. It's not hard, it's just you run risk of stabbing yourself with a pin. Okay, so I'm going to stop the camera now, and when I get all of these sewed together, I'll be back. Okay, so I am back, and I have all of my rows sewn together. So this is row 1, and if I open it up, you can see it goes all the way down. Okay, so now if you look at my little tag here, I have a 1 on it, and then I have the word down. So what we want to do now is press our seams, and what I'm going to do is alternate pressing my seams up or down so that when I go to sew the next row to it, they will nest a little bit better. So I'm just, and did I do this right? Actually, I went up on that one. So what am I doing? Let me rewind for a second. See, that's why it's helpful to have that on there, that it says down. Okay. This is a pretty fast process because this iron is super duper hot. I love it. It's a little heavy, that's my only complaint. Okay, now I'm on my last one on row 1. I'm going to grab row 2. I'm going to do that really quick, and then we're going to pin. So I'll pause the camera and I'll be back. Okay, so I have row 2 and row 1. I'm going to place row 1 down. So here's the one over here. I'm going to place row 2 on top of it, and if you'll notice, now this seam is going that direction and this one's going this one. So what I want to do is pin, and I'm just going to start at this very first one, nest those together, and pin it. Now I'm going to come back down here to the end and line that up. And I am going to pin the bottom down here. Sometimes I get interrupted, or I get to sewing and things kind of start shifting. So I'm going to pin it down here so that it doesn't shift or anything. And then now I'm going to work my way to the right. Just kind of folding these up, getting them out of my way. Okay. moving on down. So I have not pressed 3 and 4. I will do that behind the scenes. But as soon as I'm done pinning this 1 and 2 together, I'm going to sew down the right side with a 1/4 inch seam. I'm not going to film that part. You guys have already seen me sew on my machine in this video, so I'm going to be doing the exact same thing, just sewing on the right side. I'll show you that now. So this is row 1 and row 2 pinned together, and I'm just going to sew down the right side, 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so I'll be back. Okay, so I have sewn row 3 to row 4 and row 1 to row 2. If I can get it open. There we go. So now all we have to do is sew the 3 to the 2. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just going to lie this flat. And that's why we alternated, you know, ironing those in the opposite direction so that they would nest really nicely. I'm pinning the left top and the left bottom just so it doesn't shift when I'm sewing it. And now we're going to finish pinning all the way to the end. I'm not going to film the sewing again just because it's very simple. We're just sewing a 1/4 inch seam. But when I'm done, I will come back. We will measure it so that I can show you how to determine your backing and binding fabric for your long arm quilter. If you're not taking it to your long arm quilter, I apologize. I don't really know how to do the quilting yet. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and stop the camera because you guys have seen me pin enough. You don't need to see me do the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera, wrap this up, and I'll be back to show you how to measure. Okay? Okay, so I have just sewn row 3 to row 2, and we are completely finished with our quilt top. Sorry that my desk is not large enough. One of these days I'm going to get an area big enough to film my quilting videos. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to measure it so that we can determine our backing and binding fabric. So what you would do is take your measurements, and you can actually take this to the quilt shop, to the fabric store with you if you want. They can help you. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight across and measure it. And this measures, this one actually measures 39, so we'll write 39 by, and then let's measure the length. $49. So 39 by 49. So let's get out my iPhone here. There is the Robert Kaufman quilting calculator. And I'm going to open it up. Skip the ad, and then click on backing and batting. The width of the fabric is 43, that's standard. So the width of my quilt is 39 by 49, and I want 2 for the overage. And that actually shows that I need, oh wait, I gotta go back for just a second. Okay, 39 by 49. And I need, okay, that's right. So I need 1.5 yards for backing. and then now I'm going to do the binding. 43 is the width. My binding strip is 2 inches. The width again is 39 by 49, and my long arm quilter does the bias binding, so I clicked on bias and then calculate, and I need 1/3 of a yard for the binding. Sorry, my writing is so awful. Okay, so we determined how much we need. The next step is I'm going to press the entire quilt, and the seams that I just got done sewing, I want to iron those down. Okay, so I'm going to check for holes, make sure there's not any holes anywhere. I'm going to trim the extra thread. I'm going to get my backing and binding fabric, and then I'm going to take it to my long arm quilter. So if you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Okay, so have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye.